Adam and Brad here are, as you know, they're on the tour right now, giving a bunch of different talks to different Solidworks user groups, basically all up and down the East Coast. So after this, they're going to be heading up to Philly. So I think Adam, you're presenting first, right?
We swap.
Okay, cool. So Brad's going to present first, and then we'll probably take a little break. And then after that, Adam's going to present, and we should be wrapped up by noon, maybe earlier. So I think we're going to also do like a raffle for prizes later. So I'm going to get like a little sign-in sheet so we can do that later. But yeah, other than that, I can go ahead and start. Awesome.
I'm start like a seat over here. Trying to lock it so I don't fall on the floor.
Too late. You're not going to have that. All right. So welcome everyone. Again, sorry for the delay. Mother Nature had other plans. We absolutely got soaked yesterday and this morning. Perfectly fine. It happens. All right. Click. There we go. All right. So we're going to do Learn From Me, 16 years of SolidWorks mistakes. I get to showcase some of my mistakes and little tips and tricks on how to make them better. I'm one of those people that likes to answer questions as we go. So if you have questions, please stop me. This is a conversation, not me yelling at you the entire time. So feel free. And if anybody sees any questions in the chat for the live stream stuff, please holler it out and I'll repeat the questions and we'll go from there. So, all right, so I'm Tank. I'm a motorcycle minister, a husband, a dad, overall technology nerd and engineering student. I'm a project designer at Altec for 10 years. The Starcityswug, Roanoke, Virginia, user group leader, and a SolidWorks champion. And as of 2 weeks ago, I am now the Mid-Atlantic regional rep for the SolidWorks user group leaders to SolidWorks itself. I am also a certified SolidWorks expert and part of the Champions program. And if you get a chance to try out the Champions program, it's an app, you can apply to do it. It gives you access, kind of like a user group leader, but you get to work on projects. You get free software to try. You get access to 3D Experience platform and just kind of play around with all the different things that they offer ahead of time before you need to buy it or whatever. So you can kind of try the different options that Dassault has. So you've got online rendering, online what they call X shape, X design, all that platform stuff. If you're part of the Champions program, you get all that for free, and you get a chance to actually sit down and talk to SolidWorks executives, other SolidWorks users all over the world, and user group leaders as well, and kind of be part of that kind of group. So highly encouraged. I believe you have to be a CSWP and higher to be part of the Champions program.
Currently as of this year.
As of this year, yes. So if you don't, Adam's going to talk about some certifications later and how to be part of that, and how to get to that point. So we'll go from there. Joe, I guess got it on my. Apparently, all the chats are now coming to my wrist too. That's great. All right. So key takeaways for today: set yourself up for success. Design intent, how to convey it properly, and then don't make my mistakes, because I've been doing this for 16 years and I've gone back and looked at some of the stuff I've done later and made a mistake of going, oh, who did that? That's terrible. And then click on the last save by. I'm like, oh, it was me. I'm sorry. Was it a Taylor Swift song? I'm the problem. It's me. Yeah.
I'll second that for you.
Okay. You can't hear us in Teams. Okay. Can you unmute the room?
No, unmute your Teams in here. You're just muted in Teams.
Too many screens. All right. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reset everything, Brad. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So for everybody who can't hear on Teams, set yourself up for success, convey design intent appropriately, and don't make my mistakes. Again, I've made terrible drawing mistakes and modeling mistakes over the last few years, and now I get to deal with some of the repercussions of it until we decide to get rid of those models and obsolete them. So it's going to be fun. So we're going to go brief history, setup, modeling, configurations, drawings, a little bit of everything, along with some tips along the way. And then at the end, Q&A. But if you have questions along the way, please stop me. I'll answer them as we go. And let's go roll. So we're going to go back in time. For the people who are older than the age of 30, can you tell me what movie that, or younger than the age of 30, can you tell me what that movie is? And okay, good. All right, even more. What's the car? Oh, okay. Yes. Awesome. We got, you granddad has one? Oh, man, I've been wanting to buy one. Probably my laptop. I unmuted my laptop, so it should be able to get everything. No, sometimes when you have teams and Zoom together, it does, they don't play nice. Sometimes that happens.
You should be good now. I muted the room. Got him.
Okay, so brief history of myself, just kind of where I came from and how I came to be a SolidWorks nerd. And I graduated high school in 2005. Sorry, 2005. I was old. I'm old now. I graduated high school and I was going to be the best mechanic in the Roanoke Valley. I was like, I'm going to follow my dad's footsteps. I'm going to be a mechanic. Went through the entire auto shop program, was on my way to get ASC certified so that I could work on anything. And then I got my hands on modern cars. And I hated it. I hated the design. I hated having to take a headlight out to replace a battery, or to take a windshield washer fluid reservoir out to change a battery, or a fender liner to replace a headlight. So I decided I can do better than this. And I went to school for engineering. I went to Virginia Western for mechanical engineering technology in 2005. 07, I was hired at a place called Precision Technology. There's some of the products up in the top right. Zero experience. They just said, I need a drafter. The school said, here's a guy that's got straight A's in the class. Here, hire him. And they said, cool, come work for me. And they paid for me to go to college and finish my degree, which took me 6 years to do. If you count, I graduated high school in 05, and 6 years to get a 2-year degree because I'm a straight A student. 2 classes a semester for 6 years. Got an applied associates in mechanical engineering technology in 2013. I was hired at Altec. And back then, in between, I worked on aircraft carriers for those precision technology parts. And then in 2013, I was hired at Altec. And then now I'm speaking to all y'all, so plural. All right. So what we talked about yesterday was like the foundations of design and working in SolidWorks. Nice of you to join us. All right. So setup. You know, when you start using a software or whatever, always take the time to set it up to work for you first. Amazingly, this motorcycle and this motorcycle is obviously the same bike, but we all like to customize stuff. I know everybody has cars they all like to play around with, even if it's just putting new floor mats in or steering wheel covers or, you know, whatever. So we're kind of going to go over some setup stuff. And you've got to ask yourself some things. What is your daily task? What are you trying to do for your, what are you trying to do inside of SolidWorks? And then dive into the settings. I know Altec provides us with pre-set up controls. A basic user setting that it gets downloaded on every machine and then at every update. And surprisingly, when you launch the swim button, it pushes settings all the time. You just don't see the discrete settings we push every time you do a swim update, or every time you launch swim, it actually points the computer back to certain areas to relink those settings that are company standards and templates and whatnot. Edit, once you've found the settings, you look through, edit the ones that work for you. If you haven't had a chance to play around, try some different things, color schemes, layouts of your toolbars. I know some people don't even have toolbars at all. Some people just have one giant workspace screen with no feature tree, nothing. And some people have all the toolbars because they don't want to have to go hunt and find things. And then obviously put it to work. Things like mouse gestures. We have a Altec preset ones, but has anybody customized theirs? No, I see 1, 2. Okay. This guy's got more mouse gestures on everything known to man. Customize them for what you do. We do a ton of sheet metal, so a lot of my mouse gestures are sheet metal based. And if you want to get really advanced, put your S key shortcut bar on the mouse gesture, so you don't have to touch the keyboard all the way. You just swipe over into or swipe down into an S key, and it'll do what you want. You can have multiple iterations to get as much as you want at your mouse. I've seen Ivan, how you pronounce his last name, Lowen, from Canada. He doesn't even have a single toolbar on his entire screen. Everything's done on mouse gestures and hotkeys.
Yeah, my advanced tips and tricks presentation, that's actually the last thing I challenge people to do, is just get rid of it all and see how far you can get.
Ugh, that just sounds like too much work. Set the most used commands. Same thing with your toolbars. Toolbars and command manager are infinitely customizable. You can create your own complete toolbar and command manager from scratch. There's an option to do it. And as you can see up on the picture up here of my mouse, oh good Lord, it's got a lag to it. I've got everything from creating a plane, sketch, base flange, extrude, all the way down to patterns inside of assemblies on one design, one command manager ribbon that you can actually go through and just do what you need to do. So if you really only do a certain amount of tasks every day, if you're only doing surfacing, you can put all the surfacing stuff on one and hide everything else, because nobody's going to need a weldment or a direct edit screen or anything like that. So just got to go through and do it. Has anybody ever done that? Move things in and out of the toolbars, command managers, anything? Did anybody know that it was possible? Okay, good. You wouldn't believe how many people don't know that that's a thing. They're just like, I can't find it. I'm like, well, put it in there. Oh, you can put it in there. Yeah. All right. Use our design library. We've went through over the last 5 years of being corporate modeling standards team and the modeling COE. We've created design libraries for everyday use, just common notes, tables. We do blocks. We even have weld symbols in there now. I can't get into it on this machine, but we actually have a weld symbols folder. You can grab and drag common sizes of fillets, bevels, and things. So it keeps you from having to go in and use that weld symbol screen and make it yourself. So yeah, just grab and drag. We have.
If there's something wrong with that, give a Brad, myself.
Yes.
Brett, one of those guys, because we can make sure it's right.
Yes, we can go back through.
These things come from different places, so if it's wrong,
Yep.
let us know.
We have one individual who's got access to edit these things, and we will sometimes have to go through and obviously update them and whatnot. So if you run into issues, let us know. I mean, we even have, as you can see, the hydraulic ports there. So if you want to design an actual block, you can actually drop in whatever size fitting port you want. It's already pre-made. You just drag it into the block and dimension where you want it, and it already does all the feature for you. Has anybody tried the new weld symbols yet since we went up to the 2020 through 2022? I see one. That's good. It's a lot better than having to insert weld symbol, click, click, click. If you find any that you're using more that you're not using, that you need, let me know. We're building it as we go. So we just threw in the most common ones, not the weird stitch, flare bevels or corner,
It's good to remind the ones out in Zoom land that aren't with Altec.
Yes.
That they can set these up themselves to be more efficient.
Correct. Yes, and they can build their own. And if your company doesn't have one, go through, talk to whoever that you deal with in your CAD management department and set them up yourself. Gauge tables. I know every Altec plant has theirs preset. Has everybody got theirs installed on their machine correctly? Good. Because that's one of the first things I recommend for new hires is don't just throw in whatever thickness you need. Use the gauge tables that we have and that's common practice in industry. And then the common materials, again, ours are all preset, which is good. But if you are on Zoom and you're not part of the Altec group, your CAD managers will be able to set up the common materials. So if you're using all plastics, there's no need to have metal materials set up in your system. And handy dandy preset gauge tables that are fit per machine. Adam, are all yours per machine, or are they just per thickness?
As far as the sheet metal parameters, we
Mhm.
have it set up per material.
Mm.
So if it's aluminum, if it's galvanized, galvanneal,
Okay.
and that
Okay, so yeah, ours are thick via machine.
rod and pipe as well.
Oh, yeah, you can do rod and
Yeah,
pipe and sheet metal too.
Something you may be able to do, and I'm not sure how your machines are set up, right? So I'm just throwing darts at a dartboard in the dark here. But with your machines, if you're setting it up because of the bin radiuses or something of that nature, you can actually go in and set multiple bin radiuses up
Mhm.
for one gauge table for one sheet of metal, and then you just change that as you go.
Yeah, now most of it's just based on our machines here. And then, your common materials. We even have stuff for purchased items. So if you go through and you notice that we don't have an item for like a light, there's actually a material called purchased item. It allows you to create an M-BOM inside a Team Center automatically using the purchased item material. Save your settings. Go to your copy settings wizard. When you get back to your desk today, save it, put it somewhere, your SharePoint on a flash drive. Oh, wait, no, never mind. We can't do flash drives here, but if you can, put it on a drive somewhere that you can have access to, so that when we go back and update it, not if, but when we go to do another update, everything's saved. It's ready to go. Once you get everything set up, please do this. This is one of the biggest things I harp on people to do. Save these settings. And it's easy. Just click it. It'll walk you through this. I don't want that. Go away. I don't know what happened. I hit the next button and I did it. If it wasn't for technical difficulties, we wouldn't have anything at all.
Well, you've been hanging out today.
Yes, it has. All right, API and automation. Again, use the automation tools. We now have things built into, especially for our Altec team, our Team Center checklist and our model health checker to help speed up creation of parts. Automating your DXFs, automating your PDFs. The Team Center checklist will allow you to check through. If you're building an assembly, you can check every part and make sure that it's all correctly put in the system before you run that EC. It will even allow you to run the EC through the Team Center checklist, so you don't even have to open up a Chrome browser to run the EC process.
Absolute amount of org items too.
Yeah, and it will you can create all of them and add them all into the EC all in one shot using the Team Center checklist. Also, model health checker, use that. It will give you kind of an update, kind of show you things that are underdefined. If your part has too many faces on it, if it's too complicated, if it's got too many mates. Solidworks has a soft limit at 300 mates per assembly. So if you run up on that limit, try to create sub-assemblies or patterns to eliminate that. It tends to get really funky after 300 mates. So we have a little warning label in there that says, hey, you've got too many mates. It's going to cause you some save time error. Complicated parts with too many faces in it, please go through and defeature them. The model health checker will tell you if they've got too many graphics triangles on the face itself. All right, for modeling, even I need this as a refresher sometimes. Start from the beginning. Set yourself up for success. Before you start a part, think about your origin placement, the planes you're going to use. Are you going to have this part always facing the front of the truck? Do you need it on the front plane? Do you need it on the right plane? Is it depending on where it's going to be sitting on whatever part you're using? Typically in structure design that I'm working in, everything is centered about the origin. So based on, this is what I want the front of the part to be, but everything else is going to be centered apart about the origin. So it's easier to calculate center of mass and whatnot. Name your features. Please do this. I've gone back into stuff that I've created 3, 2, even as more recent as 4 or 5 weeks ago, open it up and have to modify something and have to figure out which feature does what. And this is my bad habit. It's not, I get into a rush and I forget to name the features. You don't have to name them all, just name the major ones. Pockets, if you've got some defining feature, name it. A lot of the times, it's good to have these good habits built in. It might take you a while the first time, slow yourself down for a couple days and work on doing this. It's just a good reminder. If you can, use folders, especially in assemblies. I know we do a lot on our, do we still have the big folder structure for the trucks? Okay. I know at one point we did, and the planes. Use folders if you can. You can put folders in parts too. So if you know that you're importing a part and it's got 75 import features, put all that in a folder and say import part. And then if you have to go through and modify it, modifications in a folder, that way somebody comes back through later, they can say, okay, I don't need to mess with this folder. I can come in here and modify and change the things I need to change. Yeah, you can use it in mates too. You can name your mates. You can group the mates together as well. Use patterns. Use patterns. So one of the big things I see opening parts that are 10 years old from other locations, from other companies, is they're just hole, or one big sketch with 30 holes in it rather than doing a pattern. It actually does speed you up by doing patterns instead of doing big sketches with lots of complications. And I think you said we saw something of 10 times part savings on file size going from a sketch pattern to a actual feature pattern. So if you're going to do something, use the pattern itself.
Or sketch patterns or feature patterns?
Feature patterns.
Stay tuned for our finale presentation. We talk a little bit about that when we're at Waltham. That's going to be around
2 o'clock.
3. I think the kickoff's 2, so around 3-ish maybe is when we'll probably present on that. But we've got a combined presentation where we just dive into patterns just a little bit as well as other points and
A lot of part savings and things like that. Hole wizard. Use the hole wizard, please. It's if you're going to stick a bolt through it or stick a fastener through it, use the hole wizard. It's already pre-sized to industry standards. If you ANSI or if you do ISO, metric or standard, it'll automatically pre-size, your tap drills, your countersinks, counter bores. It does it all for you. So you don't have to worry about adding a cut extrude and then a chamfer or a cut extrude, and make sure that it's the 201 inner diameter for a 1/4 inch bolt. Or if you want a different fit, you go to a 205. It'll automatically do it. And it'll allow you to use it'll allow you to automate the actual call out as well. Yes. I've never actually seen our paint tolerance standard because I just do everything. Because I just run everything as the industry standard tap drill sizes through fab. Because that's just what we do.
You probably. But it's probably got to do with mill thickness, right? You got a certain mill thickness
Of paint.
for your paint.
So that is no, this is more for, well, I guess you could do it. You can inside the hole wizard, there's a thing to allow for loose tolerances. That would be where you would probably set it up as. You can actually do a custom size there if you want to. So if you want to do a loose, closer, or a normal fit for through holes, but for tapped holes, yeah.
I was gonna say you probably want tap holes in the paint. You probably cover tap holes.
Yeah. But if it's for through holes, there's an option for through bolt size for a 1/4 of like close, normal, or loose fit, and then they allow you to even put a custom size in if you want. Yes, that's something we can look into. That'd be a good thing. Shoot me an email about that. That'd be interesting to talk to Brett about and see if there's a way we can set up a custom for paint tolerances. Like even if it's just a plus 3 thou on something. Yep. Yeah, because loose is really big. It's like a plus 10, I think, in some certain situations. Yeah,
Brad may have mentioned it, that is part of our ISO modeling standard.
yes, use the whole wizard.
Use whole wizard. I'm not talking about big giant, you know.
And not air holes.
Weight stuff, but I'm talking about if you're putting a bolt through it.
Use the whole wizard. That's part of our standard. Hey, well, I'm gonna keep up. I'm gonna start auditing your parts.
Hey, all that matters is that you accept it.
Boy, that is a very application style. All right, so we kind of went through and kind of talked about that. So I'm not going to go through the live design example, but modeling everything from scratch. That was my big, like when I first started, I'm going to do everything because I can do it all. I've got this nice software. I'm going to model an eye bolt or, you know, a threaded fastener. And because it looks cool, I'm going to put the threads in it too. I heard somebody go, it's hard on you to make it, but it's also harder on the machine to calculate it because it creates extra features that is not needed. Use pre-designed libraries. McMaster-Carr has a bunch of them with a caveat. They download at 100% drawing, was it 100% image quality, and they have every feature in it. So please, we'll go through it to simplify everything later. And then 3D Content Central. This is provided via Dassault Industries where you can download bearings, you can download casters. They've even got profiles for things like 80/20. So if you know what 80/20 is, it's like giant erector set that you cut and make yourself. You can download the profile, extrude how you want, use the weldment feature, and make your own parts that way. It allows you to speed up. This is all industry supplied stuff, bearings, fasteners, even things like office chairs and tables. They have all kinds of stuff in there. So try it, go look for it. Other places are like GrabCAD. If you want to find something that, you know, GrabCAD is not as accurate. Those are not vendor supplied. Those are actual user created things. Just be very careful. I know we have some things that we already have pre-designed that we use over and over again. So just when you download them, check them out first. Along that lines, overcomplicating models. You see the one on the left and the one on the right, they look identical, minus a few little things. They work in an assembly. So the red one, 21,000, almost 21,005 graphics triangles. It's got threads, it's got chamfers and fillets on everything. The other one, 590. The rebuild time, you know, you look at the face counts and rebuild time's not that far, but the graphics triangles and the open time is where I like to look at. Graphics triangles is when SolidWorks displays an item, even if it's flat, it breaks that flat option into a triangle. So if it's a square, it's to a triangle. If it's a circle, it has to break it into unknown numbers of triangles depending on your image quality. So try not to overcomplicate your parts. Along that line of, you know, your modeling technique that you want to think about, if you're doing things like placards or your machining parts, put your fillets and stuff at the bottom of the feature tree. You can suppress those and make them a simplified configuration that way. So you can do a simplified configuration for an install. If you're building something that's 3 assemblies deep, you don't need to see all the fillets and all the cuts on it. It just needs to be a block essentially that holds the place. So, there it goes. Placards. Yes. Good question. So, in person, one of the guys asked if the complication of the overcomplicated models affect mesh time. Yes, because it's got to calculate every single square inch of that face. If it's got more fillets and more faces, it's going to take longer to do. Now, in cases of FEA, you're going to want to make it as close to model accurate as possible, or as close to real part accurate as possible. So it will make it a little bit more complicated, but for a production print, you don't need everything. So, placards. That was a good question. Placards. Stop extruding text on placards. We're putting that in the modeling standards. Don't do it. If you absolutely have to put text on the front, just do it as a sketch and leave it shown.
If you really want to make it, you want the text on there, you can take like a screen capture of it, make an image, and then bring that in as an appearance.
Decal.
As a decal, yeah. So you can bring it in as an appearance, and that won't kill your efficiency. Where actually, I think the ACE team is working on a solution where that'll automate for you.
Yes.
But that's the best solution is to say, okay, I've got this, screen capture it, save it as a PNG or something, then bring it back in and make a simplified config or whatever you want of this, and then put that image back on top.
So placards are notoriously bad for overcomplicating or overcalculating on parts. All of our placard templates now have a simplified configuration underneath it. So you can go through and open it and just suppress all that stuff in that configuration and only have the square, because that's all you really need when you're dropping it into a model. You don't need to see all the text on an overall assembly. Because every extrude, every cut, every little face requires extra calculation. It has to break it up into individual triangles. Then you can do, you can show your sketch on there. But if you have to extrude it, you can do that on the default and then then there's a simplified configuration built into into our templates that we already have. So there's your face count with words and without words. So you're looking at a fifth of the size. Oh, I like to say a lot of our problems are user driven, but it's the connection between the keyboard and the chair. We went through a big thing about 5 years ago corporately, trying to figure out why our sales drawings keep crashing. And this was one of the big things, is we were overcomplicating models and downloading full images of things like text on placards and a screw thread that's going to get repeated 50 times on an assembly. This is, you know, we are the cause of our own problem about half, I'd say about half the time when it comes to model rebuilds. So just be mindful. So utilize the advanced, I say advanced features, but patterns, mirrors, and the whole wizard. Please use the whole wizard. If I could just laser stare, please use the whole wizard. Again, we're going to go a little bit more in depth on some of the patterning things and whole wizard stuff later in a different presentation, but please use them. Not only does it show and convey the design intent better because it labels things, it allows you to use your hole callout feature in drawings more efficiently. You can actually dimension an entire hole with just one click of a button, like the tap drill, the chamfer, all that stuff will automatically be in there in one time. And then, you know, mirrors and patterns take less calculation time. And then if you want to create a simplified configuration that's used for an assembly, you just suppress those features and there you go. It's better. Oh, back up. One last tip. I don't have it in here, but this is something that is a pet peeve of mine. Do not mate to patterned features. If you have a patterned bolt, try not to mate anything to it because it creates a circular reference in the software. Solidworks calculates a file from the top down. So if you look at your feature tree, it brings the file in, it generates the planes, it puts the pieces in, does the mates, then does the whatever features and post machining later. All right, what like your mirrors and patterns at the bottom. But if you mate something to that pattern, it has to go back up, resolve that mate back through the pattern, and it creates a circular reference inside the software. So if you run into something that's been patterned and then something's bolted, like mated to it, try not to do that. I mean, caveats are always going to be caveats to that kind of stuff. Just I discourage doing that because, yes.
Also with patterns too, and to tie into what Brad's saying, is that when you go back and say you change your seed or you change your pattern slightly, your face IDs will just about change every time.
Yep, which will blow up mates. blow up mates, blow up everything. So use planes.
And
Planes are-
can be a reference geometry,
Yes.
but if you're gonna make reference geometry of planes, make sure you try to make them off the original plane, because then they're gonna be more.
They're stable. But let's say if you pattern something and you need to bolt something to that pattern, let's say if you pattern a bolt, you know, you can use distance mates and things to get that where it's at, or mirror something over that's going to be with that bolt. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And that's gonna be inevitable, what you're saying, that process where you have to make a plane to mirror about. But I talked yesterday in some of the basics 101 at Burnsville, that if you use your planes to start with as your mid planes,
Mhm.
the symmetry is your best friend, and it will really help.
Yes. Yeah. And it's more stable that way. You're not having the software have to go back through and recreate or recalculate something from another feature. You're trying to keep everything in a line as it's calculating. All right, configurations, my kryptonite. I'm terrible at it. Of course, now with Team Center, it makes it even, with any PLM, it makes it even worse. I heard a chuckle and somebody go, this is why I discourage the use of configurations unless absolutely necessary. This model specifically. Now, I know we have other models like outrigger legs, assemblies, things that have configurations, but once they're linked in PLM, you can't unlink them without significant work. So creating, are you laughing at me?
I have found that significant work before.
Yes. You volunteered. All right. No. But yeah, this model here is one of the ones that got imported into Team Center with, you know, I think there's 40 configurations of this lower boom weldment. Parts on different sides, parts moved left and right, up and down, hidden and suppressed and unsuppressed parts. But no matter what, it's always broken when you open it. No matter what, you always have to go through and modify it, which is terrible. We hate having to do that. So use configurations, please use them sparingly. There's a few tips and tricks here. Keep similar things together. So like our bolts, we have different lengths of configuration bolts. There's a reason why. If we want to do configurations, one variable is what I recommend. Length, width, something, just one variable. Not, I'm going to change this bolt from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch and make it 16 inches long. You know, keep it as one variable. Now, obviously, these are librarian parts, so we don't have to worry about that inside of Team Center. But if you're going to create configurations like a left and a right version, you'll have to obviously create new part numbers. You can do that, but keep it as one variable option. So please be mindful of configurations. Come on now. For assemblies, do not use configurations to hide and show parts. Use them for translations of parts. Extend, retract, do open, closed, that kind of thing. Does anybody know what that is? Nope. It's from a movie. There's one. It's the ghost trap from Ghostbusters. Sorry, I'm making myself feel really old here. This is from the 80s. It's the one that they suck the ghosts in. Sorry. Pure 80s trivia night. But yeah, translations of parts, extend, retract. If you have to have a free version for flexible assemblies, do that, but kind of keep that minimal. Flexible assemblies do create extra calculation time in the software. Wait, this thing is lagging on the TV. There it goes. All right. So for assemblies, component location change or translation for parts or weldments, significantly similar to, but but limited to one variable. So if you're doing a machined and unmachined configuration, that's great. Length or width, or you're changing a paint color or something, you can do that as well. Not for hide and show components. What would you use for hide and show components in lieu of configurations? I almost said it. There you go. Display states. Use display states. And if anybody needs help creating those, I'll feel free to ask questions, and I'll show you how to create a display state. They're more stable inside of drawings. When you load a configuration into a print, say an extend and a retract on one print, it has to load that model twice in the background. Whereas display states, it does not. It only has to load that model one time. So if you've got 10 configurations on one print of different views, I found a couple of them that we've had of a weldment that was, step 1, step 2, step 3 of the weld procedure as configurations. It had to load that model that many times on the print as it downloaded. So again, we're the cause of our own problems by overcomplicating, just not knowing how the software processes.
That about 5 or 6 configurations for the file that I was just editing the drawing.
Yes. And so, yeah, we have a good one. Yes. That's a good real life. You said 5 or 6 configurations on one print. Yep. Yes. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take the bullet, bite the bullet. If it's a configuration that's just showing parts, hiding and showing, wipe them out, create display states. And the next time you go to edit it, you don't have to worry about that. Yeah. The one time it takes you to go through and make that will save you hours of time later.
Dan said Ghostbusters.
Well, of course, Dan says Ghostbusters after I told him what it is.
Oh, he probably said it before.
Oh,
I stepped out to get sticky.
okay. Good morning, Dan. All right. Be forewarned, there's going to be some terrible drawings in here. Do not get mad at me for some of the drawings I did from years ago. All right. Drawings. Obviously, we use them to show off our design. There are 3 C's to a print. I told you what the 3 C's were last week. Do you know what they are? I'm teaching our new co-op how to draw. What are the 3 C's? Clear, concise, and complete. So this mindset came when you were having to hand draw everything, because you don't want to have to multiple dimension or add extra views when not needed. Obviously, we don't want to have 15 views on a print that only needs 2, because back when this was, drafting and all this stuff was done by hand, that's a lot of paper, a lot of sweat equity. And as you can see, this guy is having a fun time drawing a building. So not clear, not concise, but it is complete. This is the only page for this print. It has the location of all the parts, the balloons for all the parts, all the rev symbols, all the welds, everything on one sheet. This is supposed to be printed out on a 36 by 24 piece of paper. Instead, it's printed off on an 8.5 by 11, and the text is now so small the printer can't even decipher it, and it's just a blob. Keep in mind, we ask our welders and our assemblers to build something off of that. So, same print, different revision. We put different pages for everything. One page just for the bill of material and exploded view, one just for the locations of parts, and one for welds, and then obviously an extra page for more critical welds that cannot be. Dang it. There we go. Stop. Of course, now it's going to pause. That's okay. But we broke it up into 3. Not only does it make it easier for the guy who's building it, but at least in our facility, we have 2 people working in one weld cell, one tacking it up, putting the pieces together, and then one finish welding. Breaking it up into those 4 prints allows those 2 guys to work off the same print and pick the information they need, rather than having to go through and highlight which things they need to find before they run through their weldments. So please think about, when you're creating your prints, make them as clear as possible. Put them on the appropriate paper size. If you've got something that's got lots of dimensions on it, don't try to throw it on an 8.5 by 11 print size or size 1. Put it on a 2 or a 3, or if you have to, a 4, so it's easier for our guys to see. So Adam and I like to do a call to action at the end of each presentation. Just give it a try. Take some time when you go to create your next part or your next print. Think about the things you want. Think about things I kind of talked about. Set your models up for success. If you're going to create a part, figure out what planes you want to do it on before you just start throwing things on in a file. Share it with everybody who decided not to come, and then try to push the limits of your knowledge of the software by trying different things. That's one of the big things about the Champions program that I like being part of. I get to try new things. I get to learn new parts of the software that I don't get the chance to do on a daily basis, like surface modeling. I cannot surface model to save my life. It's awful. I learned it enough to take the CSWE exam to pass that, but when you try to get me to do a surface model now, it's awful. Like, I'm trying to relearn it. So try different things in the software, and then obviously help your coworkers out. If you hear somebody over there struggling on something, or if they've got a part that keeps crashing, ask questions. Don't just struggle with it. And then, come on now. It's funny. It's really choppy. All right. Questions about anything SolidWorks related, about my career, about anything like that? Where's that cricket sound effect? Somebody had it earlier. I heard it. Oh, dang it. All right. Yes.
We split up like this big welder prints into 3 or 4 pages like you're talking about. Does Altec have a preferred order, like, you know, build materials and then dimensions and then samples?
Not per se corporately, but that was built based on what the welders came to me and was like, hey, can you do it this way? They asked me specifically for that order because the guys who were tacking it versus the guys who were finished welding it, they could look at different pages without having to print multiple copies.
Okay.
So that allowed a little bit more flexibility for them. So yeah, if you need multiple sheets, do it. I highly recommend doing that. It's easier for them to work with. Good question. Any more?
We had an issue the other day where we were trying to do some shop walls. But we wanted them to, like, so they can't show up on the DSO, obviously. And we're having a really hard time figuring out how to correctly show that.
So on the flat pattern itself, right? Is it going to be a flat part? Okay, so on the flat pattern itself, you're going to have to show that tap, right? Because they're going to have to manually tap it. It'll be showing a separate configuration, a separate derived flat configuration that just has the hole suppressed in it for the flat pattern, for the actual DXF. That's what we've had to do. Sometimes it can be kind of messy.
I think the issue that we were saying too was using edge marks to locate that. So
Oh, you're trying to use etch marks?
that there, apparently we've done that on this part before.
Okay.
Similar part. So trying to find, so you can't just hide a DXF and the flat pattern configuration that comes out.
Mhm.
Exactly. This was a pattern. I think it was like triangle pattern on one side and triangle pattern on the other.
Okay.
Side. And it was trying to edge it within the flat pattern so it comes off the lasers with those marks so they know exactly where it's lying.
Okay. Okay, so Sigma Nest, I know specifically Sigma Nest uses a different, I think it's dashed lines. If you do dashed lines in Sigma Nest, it'll etch versus a solid line, which cuts. I think if we were to do the DXF with a dashed line, wherever you need that to be, you'd have to talk to the manufacturing engineer that's over that. I think.
We do a lot of that for.
Yeah.
We
Ross.
use dash lines for it.
Yeah, I think that's why Sigma Nest does it. So if you need to, what I would probably do is make a note on the print, dashed line for whatever on the DXF for the etching. I'm sure Yusuf could chime in if he wants. We have you on the room if you need.
Set it up as a different layer.
Yeah. Okay.
Just unmuted the room, so you should be able to talk now.
All right. Try it, Yusuf. You said something.
I said it might be a red line on a different layer and not a dash line near the XF.
Okay. We can do that.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, I don't know if you guys do. Or Steve Wyatt or Gary Jones are the guys who use Sigma Nest at our place, and we, on all the stock bodies, we use etch parts everywhere.
So yeah, we're
So either way, you can still manipulate whatever pattern is on your flat pattern configuration.
Yes.
So
yes.
We'll go ahead and get started back now. Thanks everybody for sticking around and not jetting when you heard I was the next presenter. So I appreciate that. Makes my confidence feel a little bit better. Just to start out with, we may have skipped over this just a little bit at the beginning, but I definitely want to make sure we pay attention to our sponsors that we have this year and give some thanks to them. We do have a lot of great sponsors this year. Altec, of course, has sponsored this trip this year and last year, big contributor in that, and allowing Brad and I to do this and participate in this, as well as have you guys come and meet for a couple hours, right? And take time out of your day just to be here and meet, as well as yesterday. Solidworks User Group Network. Dan Wagner's on here with us. He's a great guy. He's over the Solidworks User Group Network, but with him and Dassault Systems and Solidworks, they've really stepped behind us and really supported this in a big way this year, even last year, but it seems like it's been even more this year. And as we picked up sponsors, HP Hewlett Packard has done a lot of sponsorship with this and actually allowed us to free up funds. And some of this great swag you guys have is not directly from them, but in a roundabout way, kind of helps it happen, as well as 3D Connection. Go Engineer has provided us with some gift cards and stuff to give out at each location. So we definitely thank them. Trimec has gave a little bit of swag, and DriveWorks has also gave gift cards too. So we want to thank those sponsors and just let them know we appreciate them. So let's go ahead and jump over into my presentation now. The presentation that I've got for this one is it's something that we're really wanting to focus on hard within Altec, right? We got different locations that are doing better than others, but we want everybody to do just as well. But that's certifications, right? The Burnsville facility as of now is like 80% certified, at least at a CSWA level. And what is CSWA? We'll get to that here in just a little bit. But we would like every location to get to that point, right? Where all locations have a high success rate at certifications, because if you are certified, it doesn't mean you know exactly what you're doing in your job, but it means you're a well-rounded SolidWorks user and that you can be efficient and proficient in a lot of things you're doing. And also it's that awesome feeling, right? So just a little bit about myself. I'm a senior designer in the product engineering department at Altec Industries down in Burnsville. We do bucket trucks, digger derricks, all that stuff. A lot of stuff comes here. I actually work directly with Lusk and Besso and a lot of these guys. My main customer is Entergy. So you guys probably hear about Entergy a lot, but that's my main customer. I also adjunct in the applied engineering department at the Mainland Community College. So I teach about 3 classes each semester, anything from SolidWorks to industrial safety and all that good stuff. So just really enjoy getting in the community and giving back. It's just a lot of fun. As Brad leads the Starcityswug, I'm actually the leader of the Western North Carolina Asheville user group, SolidWorks user group. I've been doing that for just about as long as I've been with Altec, so about 10 years. During that tenure, I was asked about 3-4 years ago to come on to the committee, the SolidWorks User Group Network Committee, as a Southeast regional representative. And so basically anything from Mississippi, Tennessee down to the Virgin Islands, any of those SolidWorks user groups there, I kind of help manage. And if they need any help, I definitely help them out and point them in the right direction, or just send them to Dan so I don't have to deal with it. Dan, I hope you heard that. Also, as well as the Altec SolidWorks user group. So all the Altec SolidWorks user groups that are spawning up, any of those guys kind of come to me as well as for the in the committee as well. So it's a lot of good things happening with Altec. We've got 8 as of right now, 6 last year, 2 this year, and we've got a couple more we're trying to bring on. Like Brad, SolidWorks champion, it's just a lot of fun stuff you can do, investigate and see new software and reach out into the community and help those that may need help, or even in the STEM area and stuff like that. And also, like Brad, certified SolidWorks expert. It's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. I know Brad's passionate about it as well. We want to see a lot of people get certified. And then myself personally, my next goal is to start getting certified on the platform and some of the platform tools. So some of the key takeaways that I'd like to kind of hit home with here is, why should you even get certified? What's the point, right? What should you expect during the certification process? And then where can you study? How do you get a leg up when you go to take those exams? Okay. So why get certified? What's the point? There's no prize or fancy presents, but there could be a party. It is a resume booster. So it does prove that you know what you're doing with SolidWorks. I mean, it's one thing to go on your resume and say, hey, I know SolidWorks, right? It's another to say, not only do I know SolidWorks, but I have proved that through an exam put forth by SolidWorks, and even have that certification number to list on your resume, so they know how proficient you are at SolidWorks. If you're already in a job, they could have work incentives implied. We are really working on that. We've worked on it for quite a while with Altec to provide incentives for that. So stay tuned. Maybe I'm really trying to work with the local groups and the user group leaders. You got Jarvis and Polly here that are going to be working real closely with anybody who wants to do that. And hopefully they can get some local incentives that they can drum up and maybe give some incentive to doing that. Bragging rights, right? Who doesn't like to brag a little bit, as well as world recognition. So it's one thing to say that, again, that you know it, but then to say you really do know it by certification. But there's no other way to say, if somebody's sitting there, you know, saying, hey, your drawing sucks, your sketch isn't good or whatever, you can say, well, it was back in the day. I've came a long ways and here I am now, right? But when I say world recognition, what do I mean by that? So on the SolidWorks Certification Center, which is now the 3D Experience Certification Center, you can go in there and go to search different levels of certification. So at the top, you can see I selected expert. You can select the country and the state, and it'll actually list anybody who elects. Now, you do have to elect to have your name displayed, but if you do, you can see yourself listed there amongst the other people, and whoever else is in that state that may have that certification as well.
6,800 now?
This was 6,000.
Okay, let's say that's a lot.
6,800, yeah.
Okay.
And that's that. I think that's total certified SolidWorks experts. And so that's came up a little bit. It used to be a little lower. I know at, what was it, about 3-4 years ago? When did Naaman leave? It's been about 4 or 5 years. Right before Naaman Renfro left, he was down in Birmingham. We had the most certified SolidWorks experts within one company here at Altec. So we had like 5, and that's just saying, you know, that's a small number, but that's a lot for one company. And so for us to have at least 80% of 50 users at Burnsville be at a CSWA or better, I mean, that's saying a lot too. So we really want to try and grow that number with Altec, see if we can be the company with the most certified users. That's be an awesome goal to have, right? Yeah, you can look that stuff up, show your status off. This is another thing for resume building as well. But you can measure your skill level and, again, prove you truly know what you know, right? Back to the party we were talking about. There is actually a party that they have each year at World, now 3D Experience World, where they give different things for different certified users, right? And at World, depending on your certification level, and I think they started at a CSWP, you get a ribbon to put on your conference badge to show what certification you are. And then at one day during that, they have a party. I think there was one year a while back, they did it at a baseball stadium, right? And they get everybody together and just hang out and have a few drinks and do whatever. It's just a pretty cool party to do that. It's pretty awesome. Now, the path to expert. How do you get to an expert, right? If you want to start on that path, well, you first have to start out with the CSWA, right? CSWA is a Certified SolidWorks Associate in Mechanical Design. That test is I'll get into the times a little bit later. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. Followed by that is going to be the CSWP. That's the professional mechanical design. I get a lot of questions. Do I have to take the A before I take the P? And it's yes and no. And what I mean by yes and no is that if you are using an academic voucher, right, you get your voucher through a college or something of that nature, high school, whatever, then yes, you do have to take the A before the P. And not only do you have to take it before the P, but you have to wait 30 days afterwards. Even if you pass it, you have to wait 30 days before you can take the P after the A. Now, if you do it in a setting like this, where, and I'll get to the vouchers and how you get them from Altec, and other ways to get the vouchers, then no, you don't have to wait, or you don't have to take the A first, right? However, I do recommend still taking the CSWA to get some familiarity with the testing software. Also, you feel good about the CSWA topic, then the CSWA should be a breeze. It should just be an introductory for you, right? And there are practice exams too. Yeah, we'll talk about those here in just a second too. But when you go swimming, right, it's always, when you're learning to swim, it's always better to start in the shallow end of the pool than jump in the deep end. So I always recommend, regardless of if you're able to just skip the A or not, to go ahead and take the A, right? Again, it helps you understand and get to know the testing better. After the A, there are after the P, there are 5 professional advanced. So these are CSWP advanced tests, right? In order to even be eligible for the E, the expert, you have to pass 4 out of those 5, right? Does that mean you have to take them in the order I have up there? No, you can take them in whatever order you want. So it's totally up to you how you take them and which ones you start with. You guys use sheet metal. Why not start with the sheet metal, right? You use drawings all the time. You know how to do bill of materials and stuff like that. Why not start with drawing tools? Knock the easier ones out of the park first, then start going down the harder ones. I think, and I don't want to say this for everybody, but I think surfacing is probably going to be the one that I think most people have a little bit of struggle with, especially in our field, because we just don't do a lot of surfacing. Mold tools, I haven't done mold tools, but that was only because somebody scared me into not doing it. They pretty much, mold tools used to be an easy exam. It used to be a fly-by-night exam. You used to be able to take it and be done. But they changed it a few years back, about 4 years ago. They changed it to where it was very job specific. So if you didn't understand the concept of molds and cooling and you know the cooling process, yeah, and how all the molding worked, then you really wouldn't be able to pass it, because not only was it a SolidWorks specific exam, but it also played into the industry knowledge as well. And so that's why I elected not to use that one. I did the other 4. Once you take those 4 and you pass them, then you are eligible to take the CSWE, the expert exam. All right. And so it does seem like a long process. You can get there. You will get there. I know I got almost there and just got busy with work, and it took me a little extra time to get it because I was busy. And then my boss was like, Dustin Rogers, if anybody knows him, decided to say, okay, you need to put this on your review for this year to try and accomplish. And I'm one of those people, you put it on my plate and it's got to be done now, because I'm not just letting it sit there and grow mold, right? And so I think within a couple of months, I just knocked out the last exam and the expert as well. Now, what happens if you fail one? Well, there's a 14-day waiting period between tests. So if you do fail one of these, you just have to wait 14 days and then you can retake it. I don't look at failing a certification exam as failing at all. And I get to that a little bit later, especially at the end of the presentation, that failing is not failing, right? Especially when it comes to this. It's just a way of bettering yourself and understanding the process, right? Again, I'll have a quote for that a little later. But especially within Altec, right? Because the only people that are going to be able to see your scores if you do fail is maybe Brett Erickson. He'll probably look at it. Now I preference that if you get the exam voucher through Altec, right? If you get it in other means, and I'll talk about that, then nobody's going to see it but you, right? And then Polly and Jarvis, whoever's issuing the exams and working with you on it, they may see it. But I've talked to them at our last symposium when we had a SolidWorks user group leader meeting, that to keep those confidential, right? Only people that should know about that is maybe them and you. No manager should be penalizing you for it. Nobody should penalize you for it or see that or knock you down because that's not the purpose of the exam, right? And so I've really tried to help illustrate that that we're here to encourage you. And if you do fail it, maybe you fail it multiple times. I've seen people do that on certain levels. Then it's our job, right? Whether it's a SWUGing job or doing it through these meetings to help you better and get you to the point where you can pass.
I failed the service twice. Actually,
Yeah.
completely all the way through. I ran out of time the first 2 times.
I failed it once. I ran out of time as well.
You can
Yeah.
also put the certifications up on your like chart profile.
Yeah, put them on my HR, add them to your resume. I have it on my signature in my Altec email. LinkedIn, you get badges. As you've seen at the beginning of our slides when we were introducing ourselves, you get badges for those things. So you can add those badges to your LinkedIn stuff and use them in different places. It's good credentials, right? Forever. Yep. You can go back and retake it. And some people say you should because they do update the test quite often. I say quite often, every 5 years, I think. Yeah. You don't have to. No. Now I'm glad they're coming out with exams for the platform and different stuff like that, because instead of me going back and retaking these, I'll just kind of continue down the process and learn more stuff and new stuff. Right. The only reason I would really suggest other than just seeing what's new on the exam, going back and retaking the test is just to make sure your skills are staying brushed up. Right. Because if it's surfacing and you just don't touch surfacing ever since you touched the exam, maybe you need to go back and retake the exam just to see how you do. I'm with you, Brad. I'm with you. So cost, vouchers, what are they? What is it? Well, the CSWA currently costs $99 to be able to take that exam. And if you fail it, yes, you do have to go back and repay that $99 fee. The CSWP is currently $99. The CSWPAs are a little different because there's so many of them, I guess, but those prices are $20 a piece. So you got 5 of them, it washes out to $100 overall, right? The CSWE is $149. Now, when it comes to these and the vouchers, you can typically get a voucher, and I'll talk just a little bit about the vouchers in a second. You can typically get a voucher for any of them but the CSWE, unless you're a leader. You guys have access to the e-vouchers. At least we did. I'm sure you probably still do. Dan, yep, I'm gonna talk about that. That's actually my next thing I'm gonna roll into. So Dan, I hope you know I just put you on the hook for CSWE vouchers. So with that, yes, thanks, Dan. So yes, the vouchers are there. As a Altec associate, I had a dinner with Emory one time during a cost savings event. And when I was talking to him about the certification process, and not only him, but Brett Erickson and the engineering systems teams also said the same thing. If you take the E and you pass it, you can be reimbursed for that. You will be reimbursed for that E.
So for total for Altec, it is completely free to take these.
Yeah.
Even as a co-op.
I'm not sure, and I can't promise they're going to reimburse you to fail it, but they'll reimburse you to pass it. I do know that. Yeah, that's awesome. We're getting close to having that 5 again. I think we've got 4 or 5 E's right now in Altec again, because we had 5, and then we had some people move out and do other things, and then I think we're back up because we've got Rhonda, you, me, Brett.
And then there's two guys up.
So we've got 6 now.
No, there's another guy. There's got 10, I think so.
10 Scroggs. I know it went for it.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So we're 5. Hey, that's all right. I mean, that just means, to me, that drives me, because I'm the type of person, if you tell me I can't do something or I'm not able to do it, that just drives me to make me want to do it, right? So that's just my personality. But there are certifications and vouchers, and how do you get those? Well, this is more of a process that you would go through if you weren't with Altec, if you was another company and you didn't have it set up. If you need a voucher, holler at Jarvis or Polly. They can help you and direct you, because typically within Altec, what we're trying to do is have certification days where everybody signs up, you take time out, you block your schedule, you go to a different room, or you do it from home and you block a window out. That way you're able to take the time for the test. And I'll talk just a little bit more about that in a minute too. So we're really trying to promote that. And if you do it that way, then Polly or Jarvis will set it up with Brett and they'll get all the voucher codes for you. If you're doing it individually outside of those certification days that we're trying to set up as Altec, then Brett's probably the man just to go straight to and get it.
We have a SharePoint page, so I'll walk you through how to get a voucher from Brett.
Yep.
And Altec has decided, at least corporately, that the certifications need enough to where they allow these certification days. They'll actually get a TriMag or go engineer to come in, set up laptops, and like basically block the entire conference room for an entire day and let you take the exams. They say this is important enough for us as, you know, training that we want to encourage it.
Yep.
You go share one, just type in Solidworks certifications.
And pull it up. Yeah. It'll search right to it. A lot better than what we used to use. It's harder to find stuff back then. So if you're not with SolidWorks, how would you get it? What's the process? This is a lot more for the people out there in Zoom land, as well as if you guys leave and go somewhere else, right, too. What is the process? Well, for each subscription service that you get a free core exam, that's a CSWA or P, and one free advanced exam per 6 months. You get them basically twice a year, and it's kind of calendar based, but every 6 months you get that opportunity for each subscription. And that's why we've got so many of them within Altec. So it's pretty easy to get them when you need them. The voucher, like I said, can be requested twice a year. It is one in the first half of the year and the other in the second half of the year based on the calendar. The steps to do so is first go to SolidWorks certification portal. There you'll log into your 3D experience certification. So that was that website where we've seen the list of names of certifications there. You go to that portal. Again, log in with your account. If you don't have an account, you can create an account there. Log into that account and then click the redemption tab. So you'll see over on the left-hand side, there's a redemption tab with a little $sign. You just click that tab and then follow the prompts. It's pretty easy. You'll actually have to go in. You'll go to your, if I remember, it's been forever because I actually did this before we had the account set up to just get them. You go up into your help and you have to find your subscription number, your license number, and go in and add that, and then it'll populate your voucher code for you. But what are some other ways that you can get free exams? Well, free exam by going to IronSWUG surveys. You can scan this code. This code will actually take you to the IronSWUG.com page, because on the testimonial page, there's that link that was flashing for surveys. Now we'll have this actual survey QR code up at the end that will ask you to do survey too for what we've done. But through that QR code, everybody who submits a survey will have the opportunity with the email that they use. And I like to say, don't use your Altec email, because what if you leave Altec and you need to go and approve you have certification, you forget your password, and you've used your Altec email? How are you going to get your password and get your certification? It can be done. You can get it back eventually. It's just going to take a lot more hoops to jump through. So I suggest not using the Altec email for your certification account. But everybody who fills out a survey will get the opportunity to take a test of their choosing free, except for the E, for doing a survey today. And there's also some other swag and stuff we'll be able to kind of hook you up with as we do kind of a lottery of everybody at the end of the week too from there. What was this down here? I just want to make sure I didn't skip something. Okay, that is the certification portal here. That's what the certification portal looks like. And we'll get a little bit more into this. Your login, move this out of the way. Your logins up here, you log in or create an account and so on. It gives you some different information. If you just go to Google and type in SolidWorks certification, you'll probably get this. Just make sure it says 3D Experience Certification Center. But that is the QR code to it if anybody needs to scan it. What do you expect? Well, the online test client. So the client that you're testing is you have to download it online, but it kind of is online and on your computer as well. And it looks just like these images up here. I know it's a little small to see probably from the back.
but it is a Tester Pro client. It's where the test will be done and recorded. It's downloaded from the certification center. Let's see. Most of them are, I won't say most of them, a good 75% are probably multiple choice. And they really help guide you for the ones that aren't multiple choice. So when you have to fill in the blank, right? Because what it's going to ask you for is right here, general knowledge, part creation, and assemblies, right? But when you're looking at that, what the question is going to ask is for mass and center of mass. That's how it knows your information is correct and you've modeled it correct. You've applied the right units of measure, you've applied the right material and all those things, right? So let's say you're on a multiple choice, which is probably where it'll start. If you're off, you probably want to relook at it because the more you get off and the more that grows as you go on to it. And when you go to type in your answer, then you're definitely going to be off and wrong, right? There's a point where you can kind of fudge it on the multiple choice, say, I'm close enough. This is what it is, right? But just be leery of that because when you get to the fill in the blank, it'll deviate quite a bit. There is a tolerance that they allow. I'm wanting to say it's 1 to 5%, depending on what test you're taking. So they do allow for a little bit of deviation. So with the CSWA, what do we expect with it? Going a little bit more of the general knowledge. So general knowledge is going to be kind of like you're looking at a drawing. What kind of view is this? Is it a section view? Is it a crop view? Is it a broke out section? That kind of stuff. That's going to be your general knowledge. Part creation, you're developing a part from scratch based on the parameters that they give you. And then assemblies, they give you a folder of a zip file with parts in it, and then you assemble them in the order which they request. And then so your part files are going to be mass based. Your assembly files are going to be center of mass based. And that kind of, because the mass is, and it'll tell you on the test too, it'll say center of mass is arbitrary, right? Or if the center of mass is not, then it'll tell you as well. But on the CSWA, there's 14 questions for 240 points, right? It's 3 hours long, and you need to get 165 points out of those 240 to pass. That's basically a 70% pass rate. So yeah, or 70% to pass. And then you'll see that consistently with the rest of them as well. It's basically getting a C. If you can get a C, you're going to pass, all right? Now, what about the CSWP? The CSWP is 3 hours and 20 minutes long. It's broken into 3 segments. So with the CSWA, you got to sit down, you got to take it. It's 3 hours and you're just going to do it, right? With the CSWP, you can break it up into 3 different segments. You can take all the segments up back to back if you want. But let's say you want to do segment 1 today, segment 2 tomorrow, segment 3 the next day. You can do that. You can break those up. And it helps out a little bit. And with segment 1, it's 70 minutes long for segment 1. You have to get 75 points out of 105 to pass it. That's a 71% to pass. You got to get a 71%. Segment 2 is 50 minutes, 77 points out of 104 points to pass it. It's about a 74%. And then segment 3 is 80 minutes, 77 points out of 109. That's a 71 to pass. Okay. So notice with these times, and I talk about this a little bit here and again, that's why I said make sure you have the time to take it and you don't have to worry about interruptions. That's why I think the cert days that Altec is trying to help put on and establish is really going to be a benefit to you, because if you're doing it here and maybe you set this conference room up as cert day conference room, laptops coming here and you do it here, you're away from your desk, don't have to worry about somebody coming from the shop to bug you. Or if you're doing it at home, you block that calendar time out, because that allows somebody to say the shop guy sees your boss, or maybe Besso's sitting next to you. Where are they at? And you say, well, they're taking an exam right now. They'll be done in, 2 hours or whatever the case may be. So that really helps. It's a good benefit there. Practice makes habit. I'm a firm believer that practice makes habit. It does not make perfect. It makes habit, right? So how do we practice? Well, these QR codes will help you. I'll click into them, kind of show you around with them. You can find them on Google if you look for them. But for the CSWA, this PDF is available. And there's one for the P as well. This thing is in my way. And it basically gives you a PDF, something like this. It gives you some exam details about a guide about it, certification. These are the different ones and what they apply to. Here's some details. So what are you going to look at? The drafting competency is going to be 3 questions and they're 5 points each. So this is real good information and knowledge to have, that the basic part and modification is 2 questions, only 15 points. Then you go into intermediate part creation, 2 points, or 2 questions, 15 points. And then advanced part creation and modification is 3 questions with 15 points each. Now, what they usually do typically is they'll start with a base part that you create, right? And they'll give you the parameters for that. And then each question, as you go through there, you're going to take that part and you're going to modify it and create something else out of it and go on and on. My big pointer, and I think I'm maybe getting ahead of myself, but my big point is with that, every question you have, save that model as that question. When you do question 1, save that model as question 1. When you do question 2, save that next model as question 2. Build upon it, save as and all, right? Do all that stuff. And that helps you isolate issues you may have, right? What if you get to question 6 and you're like, dang, this is way off from what my multiple choice questions are. But then you can go back to maybe question 5 and look at it and say, well, I'm good here. The problem's isolated in question 6, and that's this model, right? So that's just really good practice. But here's another cool tip is if you look down, now we're at assembly creation. It's 4 questions. They're 30 points each. What does that tell you about assemblies? They're weighted a lot heavier than the rest of the questions. Now, the great thing about the test is you can skip through and go all the way to the end. You can come all the way back to the beginning, whatever you want to do. So answer the stuff you know. If it's just the 3 questions at the beginning and they're just miscellaneous drafting competency questions, answer those. My suggestion is as soon as you do that, go to the assemblies. Get the assemblies done, because if you run out of time, where do you want to run out of time with? The ones that are worth 15 points, not the ones that are worth 30 points. Right? So that's just a really good tip and trick that I like to throw out there. You can skip through, hit the ones that make a meaningful impact on your score. As you scroll through this, you'll see some other stuff. It talks about the tester client. I'll get a little bit into that here in a minute, and how you download it and you use it and log in. Then we scroll down and we start seeing some practice examples. So you can use this for practice examples to quiz yourself, see how you do, and the answers are at the end. So don't go to the end and get the answers before you do the exam. You actually go ahead and do the exam and then check yourself with the end, with the answer key. So that's really helpful to have. Again, that's that QR code there. If we go next, there's a CSWP PDF, just like the A. If you scan that one or you go look for it, yes, it goes. Okay, I thought I was going to crap on me there for a minute. We can go and look, basically same details. I'm not going to go through every bit of this, but you can kind of see the same details on what's going on. What does segment 1 actually have in it? What does segment 2 have in it? What does segment 3 have in it, right? And I'll let you kind of review that on your own instead of going into super deep detail. But one cool thing about the P is, because it's broke up into 3 segments, you don't have to pass all the segments. You can pass segment 1, fail segment 2, and pass segment 3. When you go retake it, you only have to retake segment 2. So you can pass or fail whichever ones and just go back and retake the ones that you didn't pass. So that's a pretty cool thing about the CSWP. Then once you take the CSWP, of course, then you're down the road with the advanced exams and which direction you want to go, what you want to tackle after that. I also want to throw this out here. This is some cool CSWA and P-free training. So Brad and I had an opportunity last year, beginning of last year, probably going into spring last year, down in Atlanta, Georgia, being in my committee region, brought on a guy from Georgia Tech College. He was gun-ho. He's excited, super cool guy. During IronSWUG last year, Brad and I actually went to Georgia Tech College and did our presentations there for them and their students. It was a really great experience. And this guy was just awesome. He's since then moved on to some other things. He's got another guy that replaced him, but he came up with this training course that is free to anybody who wants it. So if you scan this QR code, I know I got a lot of QR codes, but it's just easier to scan than put hyperlinks up there. This is just really cool. So you go to that QR code, or it's canvas.instructor.com /enroll, and then of course the prefix there. Sign up with your email. Remember what email you use. You can go back, and I think you have to do a forget password. I don't think it sets you up with a password right away. So it just signs up with an email, and you can't ever come back and use that email again until you already got an account. And I'm gonna go in here and kind of show you a little bit about this, because what's cool is once you set this up, if you'll go and you'll just go to the same link, it's fine. You can go to the same link. Just go and take out the enroll section. So just go to canvas.instructor.com. It'll take you here. Then you can do the forgot password, use your email, set up the password that way. That's the easiest way I found to do it. I don't know. I think I just typed that wrong. Yes, I did. Do what? Yeah, right. Yeah, LastPass. If anybody doesn't use it, know about it. LastPass will save everything for you. So once you set it up, you get that in there. It gives you a dashboard like this. You go to CSWA MP training.
If you're currently enrolled in college, I think you'll recognize this is very similar.
Yeah, it's Canvas. That's exactly what it is. Yep. It's used by Georgia Tech. It's kind of cool because if you go in and play around, you can actually find some other classes if you want to join. But this is free. This is set up, like I said, through that Georgia Tech professor. He's a brilliant dude. I think he's into the medical engineering field, is kind of what he moved into at Georgia Tech now. And so what I find cool is he referencing some really cool stuff. If you ever have trouble or you're stumped on something and you can't get past something, they have a Discord site where you can go in and ask questions and get answers pretty quick. So it's a helpful tool not only there. I like how he throws some of the stuff in here, and it's all kind of prerequisite to the next sections. But he talks about the Dunning-Kruger effect and how competency and everything kind of plays out there. I thought that was really neat that he threw that in there. And as I said, it's prerequisite. So you have to go down through here and do the stuff before you can open up the next section. So yes, you would have to go through the CSWA to get access to the P section. One of the cool things that he does here is he references at the bottom of this, and I'll go to it in just a second, but he references a really cool guy that I love to listen to on YouTube. I talked about him yesterday in my presentation. I know Brad knows who he is. But he starts out with SolidWorks hotkey maps, right? That's basics 101. Learn your hotkeys, set your mouse gestures, and set your shortcuts, right? But he talks about that. That's a great way to start out. Then he gets down into your customizing your keyboard shortcuts, and he references Too Tall Toby Schnars. If you don't know this guy and you haven't heard him talk or present, he's brilliant. He's very smart, and he conveys his information very elegantly. I don't know anybody that's attended one of his presentations and less saying I didn't understand what he said, because he's just that good of a speaker. And also, if you go here and you do that, it'll also wrap you back to Too Tall Toby's YouTube page that he has, because he currently is kind of an influencer in YouTube, where he does different presentations for SolidWorks, live SolidWorks presentation, tips and tricks. He's just a cool dude. A lot of cool stuff.
And a CAD competition.
And CAD competition. You ever want to show your CAD skills off and see if you can, compete with the best anonymously? He puts on CAD competitions all the time.
I got spanked in 2.5 minutes. It humbled me. Trying to do speed modeling challenge. The guy who beat me had no toolbars whatsoever. Was able to model an entire model in around 2 minutes. I got it done in about 2.5.
That's awesome.
2 minutes. I was like, well, I didn't make it past round 32.
Yeah. So yeah, just great information, great way to go through it. If you, as Brad and everybody said, if you're used to Canvas, this is a Canvas setup. Again, a lot of good, useful information, and it's free. This slide's going to be up for a little bit longer, so if you want to choose any of those QR codes, if you need this information, I'm on Teams Altec, and email me, whatever, look me up. Other places to look at for practice, right? Well, you can look at the Tester Pro client itself. So when you go in to the certification center up at the top right hand corner, you'll download that Tester Pro client. And inside there, you can kind of see in this area right here, you have a CSWA practice exam. That's a free practice exam there. And here's a CSWP 2 segment 1. That's the only one you get, free practice exam there. You can take that as many times as you want, but I'm pretty sure once you pass it, you can't take it anymore.
Once you pass the exam.
Yep.
Yeah, and I recommend doing that, even if you've been through, even if you think you want to try it, because it gives you an idea of how the actual software works, so that you run through it and test how it works.
Yep. My SolidWorks. This is a great place to look for information, not only for the exam, but for a lot of other stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and click on this and look at it, but go to My SolidWorks. When you get to My SolidWorks, you can log in and do whatever you want, but just go to the search bar, CSWA or P, whatever you want to look at. And there's a plethora of information here to study with. Different exams, different practices, different stuff you can look at. So that's another great way. Yep. Solid Professor. This is a tool that I use a lot in my classes when I teach is Solid Professor. If you're a student and have a student email, you can get Solid Professor pretty cheap. For a business account or anybody else, I want to say it's $300-400 for a year subscription of it. If you're a student, you can get it for, I think it's $70 right now. It may have went up to 80 with inflation. I can't remember. But that's still cheap. That's a year subscription. Not only does it give you access to SolidWorks content, certification content, and stuff like that. This Solid Professor website has a plethora of stuff as well. They've got Mastercam, SolidWorks, Solid Edge, GD&T. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of stuff, and it's just kind of like YouTube videos you go in and watch, and you can just go through them, and you can work side by side with the person doing it, and so it can really hone your skills in there. LinkedIn Learning. Who knows that we have free LinkedIn Learning? It used to be lynda.com, and they got bought out by LinkedIn Learning. So we got LinkedIn Learning. Anybody else know we got LinkedIn Learning? Yeah, it's a great tool. If you don't know how to get it, get with Brad or myself. We'll get you hooked up. I've actually got a PDF I think I made to give people. So when I started doing cert days, I created a document that I just sent in the email for people to get LinkedIn Learning running for them. I don't know if it's going to let me log in because this is not an Altec computer. We'll see.
Yeah, you have to use your Altec information. It's free for the Altec.
Yeah, I don't know that's going to let me. It's trying to take me to my actual LinkedIn. So yeah, I'm not going to sweat that. I was basically going to show you as it sets up very similar. It's got a search area. You can go in and type in CSWA, CSWP, any of that stuff. There's surfacing stuff in there as well. But you can type that in the search bar just like my SolidWorks. It's different training material, right? So it's the same but different, because you don't want something I've seen a lot of people do, especially with the practice PDF, is they go in and they learn exactly how to do the practice PDF problems. And then guess what? They didn't understand the concept the PDF was teaching. And when they got to the exam, they didn't pass it because they learned how to do the PDF problems. Right. And so using a diverse amount of stuff to learn and train yourself for the exams will allow you to understand the concepts that the exam's asking for versus just a problem, an answer to a problem. Right. VAR. Everybody knows we have a VAR, right? Anybody know what a VAR is? What VAR means? It means value added reseller. We all have one. Your guys' VAR is Trimec, same as mine. Some of Altec is Go Engineer. Utilize your VAR. Have them come in. Polly and Jars, they can have the VAR come in and do some SolidWorks certification training as part of the user group, right? And that's free. Now they do charge for training outside of that, so be a little leery there. But if that's what you need, that's what you need, right? But the VAR can offer you training in different aspects as well. Again, I always like to say practice does not make perfect. Practice makes habit. It's muscle memory, right? Whether you're in sports, engineering, job, fun, whatever it is, practice makes habit. I always like to quote Aristotle when I mention this, but we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but is a habit. So what should you need? what do you need to be able to do this? Well, you need at least SolidWorks 2011 or greater, right? Which everybody here has that. We don't have to worry about that. A mouse with a left and right button as well as a mouse wheel. Anybody tried to use SolidWorks using your laptop mouse pad? It sucks. It's horrible. Don't put yourself through that pain, especially in the exam, right? Have a mouse available for you. 2 screens or monitors, right? And the reason I say that is because you can put the test on one screen, you can put your SolidWorks on the other screen and work that way. Otherwise, you might grow a gray hair to flopping between the 2 different screens trying to figure exactly what you need to model and do. You need a 3D experience certification login. We just talked about that a minute ago. You go to the certification site, you log in, create an account, whatever you got to do. You can do it on the website, which is kind of where I prefer to tell people to go to do it, but you can also create it on the fly in the Tester Pro client if you need to. But it's, in my opinion, it's better just to go ahead and have it and then just log in with the tester. You need the Tester Pro client. That's again what we were looking at in the certification center, top right hand corner. Click it, download it, use it. It is whitelisted, exactly. And then the last thing on this slide that I want to reiterate, and I know I've said it many times, is make sure you have the time. There's so many times I hear Brad said it, I said it. I've heard so many people say we ran out of time. Try not to fall victim to that. Now it's going to happen if you're struggling a little bit and you're trying to learn the exam and stuff. It's going to happen a little bit, but don't let it be because you had to get up and go get coffee or use the restroom, right? Do all that before you start the exam. Have your drink, your snack, whatever you need, have it there when you start the exam so you're not getting up and getting distracted with other things. Tips and tricks. Global variables. This is a big help. If you don't know how to use global variables, learn about global variables. It's not super pertinent to the CSWA because you have, I feel like, a little extra time in my opinion. But you can still use it in CSWA. It will help you, but it's not as needed. Once you hit CSWP and on, you better know global variables.
Use them in the test.
I haven't seen it as a requirement, but it will definitely speed your time up because if you have to go in and manually change those dimensions for certain areas and locations, then it will slow your progress down versus just going to the equation table and doing it.
I think CSW actually says assign this global variable.
Well, it says it, but there's no way they could check it because it's only going to ask for mass and center of mass. But yes, if you don't, you're not going to pass it. There's no way you'll be efficient enough. And by the time you get to the CSWE, you better have mastered your mouse gestures, your shortcuts, your hotkeys, your global variables, any way you can speed it up. Because what happens as you progress through the tests, the time is probably about the same. The number of questions is probably pretty similar. But what happens is they're more involved questions, right? It's more critical thinking questions. It's more, this has happened. How do you get to this answer, right? It's not just as straightforward. So you got to think about that. And so any way you can speed yourself up and become efficient is always better, especially the further you get into the exams. Mouse miles. That goes back to, I think Brad even mentioned it. I mentioned it a little earlier. Mouse miles, using mouse gestures. Does anybody know what mouse miles is? Okay. So when your mouse travels across your screen or across 2 screens or 3 screens, it's creating a length, right? You could have 1,000 mouse miles in a day, depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it, right? Even more, maybe less, right? And so what we say is reduce your mouse miles. Well, if you have mouse miles and you're going from one screen to the other, or even across just a singular screen, it's taking your time. It's causing you to be less efficient. If you use mouse gestures, a mouse gesture is staying right where your mouse is. A shortcut bar, shortcut menu is staying right where your mouse is. Your hotkey, it's not even a mouse feature. You're using your other hand. So, right, you're being efficient by using both hands at that point. So you're reducing mouse miles and making yourself more efficient. You're speeding yourself up. Now, those are fractions of a second, but those fractions of a second add up during the course of a day. I've seen charts where you can really gain efficiency and how much efficiency you gain by reducing mouse miles. And so reduce your mouse miles, have mouse gestures, have shortcut bars set up, and use your hotkeys, right? Assembly model placement. What do I mean by assembly model placement? Who knows the difference of going into SolidWorks and having your parts open in the background? You drag a part in and you drop it versus if you click it and hit the checkbox. Anybody know the difference between those two?
Drag it on, it's fixed, right?
It's fixed in an arbitrary location. Yeah. And then if you click it and hit the checkbox, what does it do? It dumps it on the it fixes it, which is good. We want the first one to be fixed typically when we bring it in. But what it does is it places the origin and alignment of that part in direct relation with the origin and alignment in the assembly. So when you come across an assembly on the test, it's going to say, here's your list of parts. We give you a zip file, open this up. This is the first part that needs to be put into place. When it tells you that's the first part that needs to be put into place, don't drag it in, because they're going to ask you for center of mass and it's going to screw your center of mass up. Don't drag it in. Click it, hit the checkbox. It'll dump it on the origin exactly like it should be. Then you build off of it. I see so many people drag it in and wonder why their center of mass is so far off, and they modeled everything right. But the center of mass or the origin was not arbitrary. And I think I missaid that earlier. I said center of mass is arbitrary. It's not what it says in the test. It actually says origin is arbitrary, which if origin is arbitrary, the center of mass is arbitrary, right? It doesn't matter. But when you get into assemblies, you'll notice the origin is not arbitrary and you need to locate it based on the first part that comes into the model. So open your insert components, click the first part, click the checkbox, it puts it in place. You'll start off on the right foot every time with assemblies that way.
I think you can also select the part and select the origin too. It's a little bit more time.
Maybe. I've not tried it. It's possible, yeah. Skip through. I mentioned this earlier. What do I mean by skip through? Skip through the test. Find what you can do easier first, right? Don't waste your time on something or spin your wheels on something when you have questions later on in the test that are worth 30 points and questions at the beginning of the test that are worth 5 points. Let's hit the heavy hitters first and then take care of the other ones, right? Work on what counts the most. Save each model as its own. I already kind of said that, so I won't elaborate too much on it, but basically just save every question as its own file. Do save as. That way you can troubleshoot or do things if you need to later on. So I always like to throw notes on the board, things that I think I would have probably jotted down the most, and this may not, maybe you had other notes and that's fine too, but the things I probably would have said for sure is that certs will help with your job and recognition, right? They're going to give you benefit there. You can get exams free. You don't have to pay for them, whether it's through Altec, whether it's through SolidWorks user groups, because it's not only this one, IronSWUG, we have the availability to give you free codes by doing the survey, but it's also other events. If you hold a certification event and you have somebody from TriMet come in, they have the opportunity to give your guys codes too. And what I tell my guys whenever I'm working with certifications with them, I say use these free codes outside of Altec as practice burners, because nobody's seeing that. Those are just practice burners. And I always tell them, if you're going to do that, just try and do it 14 days before we have our cert day, so you're still eligible to take an exam on our cert day. So yeah, it's a great way to get exams that way. You can get them through this. You can get them through World. SLUG Me. Anybody heard of SLUG Me? That's SolidWorks' largest user group meeting ever. It comes up every year, typically around fall time. I think it's going to be September timeframe this year. Dan, if you have dates and you know that, you can throw it in the chat. Brad will holler it out at us. But SLUG Me is an event every year. They give free codes every year. They had, I can't remember how many exams it was taken last year because of it. So look for those free codes. They're out there. You have to have at least about early October. Thank you, Dan. So 70% to pass most exams. Most exams are at least 75, I think, or 70. I think one was about a 74, 75. So that's kind of where they lay. The CSP can be done in 3 segments. You don't have to sit down and do it all at once.
Recommend it take time. Do it 3 seconds.
Yep. There's lots of places to practice. And it's best to use 2 monitors. Now, like Brad said, we like to call people to action. So mine is to give it a try, pass an exam, and level up your game. There is no failure except in no longer trying. Sometimes a winner is a dreamer who just won't quit. And I'll open it for questions.
Back to college. You know what the process would look like in terms of getting voucher, get my CVS.
So do you have seats of SolidWorks at your college?
Yes.
So you just approach your SolidWorks professor. He should have a portal very much like we have here at Altec that can get you a voucher code. It would be an educational voucher, but it doesn't mean anything. The difference being is that you got yours here at Altec, so there's no time limit of when you take the P, as whereas if you did it the other way around, it would. So yeah, you take your A here, pass it, go back to school and tell your professor I'm ready for the P, and he should be able to get it for you. If he doesn't and he's not able to get it for you, tell him to reach out to Marie Blanchard with SolidWorks with the systems. She is the main person over the educational side of SolidWorks and Dassault systems, and she can point him in the right direction on how to get those certifications for the students. Yeah, you'd be able to get the A, the P, and the advanced. As I said, anytime you get a voucher based on a subscription base, you're allowed to get one of the main tests, which is either the A or the P, as well as an advanced exam with them. So even when you apply for the A, you can get an advanced. When you apply for the P, you get an advanced. So yeah, each time you're able to get that.
Yes. Yes.
The E is out of pocket at that point, yeah. But there are sponsorships and things you can do. If you go to World and you talk to, Mike Puckett or something like that, and you plead your case and say, I'm just a lonely, poor college boy and I need help, he might be able to hook you up. I can't say for sure, but there are ways of getting people where they need to be. SolidWorks is a great company that helps their users as much as they possibly can. Great question. Any other questions?
Oh, we have a question in the chat. What's the time frame for which a voucher code lasts?
It's hard to say. I know, honestly, can't think of it. I know when you issue them through the voucher portal that it does give you an expiration date. They can go longer than that. I've seen them last up to 3 months before. Some of the ones we've gotten from TriMech. When you get it through the voucher portal, you can actually set the expiration date. When you get it through the certification center, like I illustrated in the PowerPoint, I don't know if you can set an expiration date if it has a default one. If anybody on Zoom knows that answer, feel free to throw it in there. But I know through the portal you set the expiration date and it goes out a few months. Yeah, kind of depends on how you get it, who you get it from, and what they do on that back end. Any other questions on Teams or Zoom? Okay. Oh, got one right here. Yeah.
Pass one section. Do I have to pay any more money as a specific section or?
So the question is, if he takes the CSWP and doesn't pass a segment, would he have to repay to take the CSWP? And I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. You won't have to retake the other exams that you passed. You just have to take the one that you didn't pass. But yes, you will have to pay for it unless you do it through Altec or through an EDU version. That's going to be free anyway. Or come to SWUG meetings. We give them out all the time.
We get all the time. Almost every meeting we're handing out codes. People take things.
Yep. Another good question. Something that I haven't heard. Any more questions? Going once, going twice.